Hello friends, my name is Alex Brockbank. I have created this film rating system that I will talk about in this video, and hopefully it'll be shown in a lot of videos to come. And in this video, being the intro video, the first video I'll do, I wanted to give an overview of what exactly it is that this company is. And I guess company still feels weird to say because I'm still just a website and just a one person. So this idea, this concept, I'll explain what it is, what made me come up with it, why I think it's necessary, and then I'll talk about kind of where I see it going, at least in the next little bit where I see it going. So first, where the idea came from. Well, first let's start with what it is. So the film rating system, the film rating company, this system I've come up with, is a system that will, don't want to say the word replace, but in a sense replace the MPAA's current rating system. For those of you who don't know what that rating system is or what I'm talking about, it's the PG, PG-13R, etc. A few of those different ratings, well, all those ratings that films nowadays have. So a group of individuals who work for the Motion Picture Association of America, I think it is the MPAA, they rate these movies after they see them and give them the ratings that we commonly hear and commonly see today, as I mentioned just a second ago. And so my rating system is a little bit different with some similarities, but mine goes by a weighted system on the content that's actually in a movie. So with the current system, it's set up in it seems to be biased and a little bit opinionated because the movies have very broad categories for what they are. I think we've all seen or heard of, or if you don't know, ask somebody, and a lot of people have seen PG movies with questionable content because of either the decade they came out or somehow it just slipped through. And then you've seen the other end of it with a rated R movie where you're not sure why it had that rating. The content it just doesn't seem to fit that rating compared to the other movies that also fit that rating. And then you've seen PG-13 movies, which can go on either end of the spectrum where you're curious and usually don't care because most people who see PG see PG-13. But a lot of people probably do notice when they see a PG-13 movie and they wonder why it wasn't PG, what was in it, and why it's classified as it is. Or you see content that's out there and a little bit more offensive and wonder why it's not rated R. And that's because the system that is currently in effect is too broad. It is too biased and way too broad. The system I've created is it's a ranking out of 1 to 10 based on the content that's in a movie and special weights to each category. So I've done a survey with a few people I know and through Facebook, so it ended up being about 80 people who did the survey to find out what content is the most offensive. And that includes, for instance, and I'm not going to list all of them, I'll do future videos about that, but some of the content being nudity, sexual actions, or just sexual content, language, but two categories of language, harsh language versus the frequency of language, which are two different things that a lot of people don't realize. And same thing with nudity and sex, a lot of people don't realize that those are different categories. They're not, a lot of people put them together, but in reality they're not. They are very different. And there's other categories, but those are really the main ones. Those ended up being the most offensive according to the survey that that people completed, that I put out. And I wanted to find a system that would be more based on the content and these specific categories that people care about, instead of just a general, well, this one had some language, no nudity, but we'll put it PG-13 kind of in the middle. Or this one had nudity in it, but nothing else, so it's PG-13, where in reality there's a lot of people, and I think this is the most common case, where people are most offended by nudity, and when they see that, they automatically want it to be an R rating, especially if it's in prolonged scenes or more offensive, like worse body parts to see. More private areas, you might say. And the current system just isn't built for that kind of specificity, if that's a word, which I hope it is, or I'll look really dumb. But my rating system puts in these weights based on that survey that went out, and the beautiful thing about it is it's a very fluid system, and a system that can adapt to change. And what I mean by that is the system I have, I made weights based on my survey for everything. But the beauty is that you, as an individual or as a family, as a patriarch of a family or someone who oversees your family and wants to make sure that the content in movies fits with what you want your family to see or yourself to see, you can go in and adjust these weights. So if you find nudity to be extremely offensive, but you don't care about language at all, then you can put the weight for nudity much higher and language a lot less, and then your rating for a movie will reflect that change versus what my base system shows or what someone else might have. So while it's the same system, it can be altered for what you want and what your personal preferences are. And the whole goal of this is so that people can see movies and be comfortable in the theater. I have had experiences where I'll go see a movie with my dad. I remember one specific instance, and I hope my dad's not embarrassed by this, but where we went and saw a movie, and there was a scene in it that I did not want to be next to my dad for. Granted, I didn't want to see it in general, but especially with your parents there, you don't want to see that kind of scene. And I remember how uncomfortable that feeling was in the theater, and you just don't know what to do. It's so uncomfortable and awkward, and I just don't want anybody to experience that. So my system is something you can look at before you see a movie and know, and even though you can know what's in a movie without having any spoilers, because there's a fine line there. You want to know what content's in a movie, but you don't want something to be ruined. For instance, there can be a lot of language in pivotal scenes that you don't want ruined, but you want to know the language is there. There can be certain violent scenes, which are the pinnacle, the climax of a movie, but you don't want to know exactly what happened or what's happening because you don't want to ruin it, but you do want to know what is in the movie and what you're going to be seeing as far as content goes. And my system will help so that you can look at a movie in the system, you can look at the rating of the Brockbank Film Rating Company rating on a movie before you see it and know what's in it, and so you can go to the theater and be comfortable the whole movie through. You don't have to worry about if you're there with your kids or you're there with your parents. You don't have to sit there just waiting for some scene to happen because a movie is rated R or is PG-13, and you never know because sometimes they have stuff in them. You can be comfortable knowing what's coming without any spoilers, but knowing the content that's coming, knowing what kind of uncomfortable scenes may or hopefully will not be in it. So that's a very, very brief, and I know it's probably a long bit, I don't know how long this has been going, but that's a brief explanation. I also have a website up, and you can go and read a little bit more about it to get more specifics. And again, in future videos, I'll probably, since it's the first one and it's just weird making videos, I'll make more that help explain it in better detail if I find that this one doesn't do it justice. So next, I want to talk very briefly about why the change is needed. Because like I said, the current system it's good. It's worked. It's good enough, I guess. It's just not optimal. So to tell a story, and this is something I did a little bit of research on when I was actually first coming up with this idea in one of my classes. I was in a business writing class, and this will give you a brief history of where the idea came from for this system I created. I was in a business writing class, and we had to, for our final project, I guess the project throughout the semester that was due at the end of the semester, we had to come up with a company or a product that we could write about, that we could go through all the different steps. We wrote about what it is, how we would market it, and how we would sell it, things like that. And I obviously didn't do a great job, or this would be much easier to do. But as I was researching out, and the teacher it was a great project because the teacher let us choose something we were passionate about. And for those who know me, I'm in finance. I'm actually in my office now, but I'm in the finance world. So at first I was like, well, I might as well keep it to my major and do something finance related. I couldn't think of anything. Nothing really stood out, at least not anything I was really passionate about. And then I thought about sports. I love sports, so I thought about something in the sports world that I could market and that I could do. And nothing came. I couldn't think of anything that was... I guess I could think of things I was passionate about, but not marketable, not things that I could sell. And then I thought about the film industry, which I've loved for a long time. I'm a huge, huge movie person. And this idea came to me. I was looking through some film topics, random ones, and I stumbled upon a story from back in the 80s, and it was a Steven Spielberg story. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the MPA rating system and the history of it, and specifically speaking the PG-13 rating, back in the early 80s, they didn't have PG-13. It went from PG to R. And there was one movie in particular that came out. It was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And for those Indiana Jones fans who are familiar, you'll remember a scene in the movie. It was a sacrifice scene where a character's heart gets ripped out. And it's actually surprisingly not as violent as that makes it sound like it would be, but it's still something. And when the movie got released, though, it was given a PG rating because that was the only thing that even pushed it near R. Or at least one of the things. It was probably the thing that most pushed it towards R. And they just didn't feel like there was enough to make the whole movie rated R, so they kept it as a PG rating. And it outraged a lot of people. It was awful. There was a lot of people who were complaining about it. And Steven Spielberg was actually in agreement. He thought it was, he didn't think it was fair to have nothing in between PG and R. He thought it was unfair for both the audience and for filmmakers because they don't want to alienate an audience with an R rating when in reality it's not that bad or not to the point where it's adults only. But at the same time, there can be the opposite effect where people will see PG as a rating and think it's a kid's movie or a young adult movie or something that's way too young for them or just they're not going to like because of that. And it was just unfair. And audiences, as we've talked about, they didn't want to see an R movie because they didn't want to see anything offensive, especially with kids. But on the other end, they didn't want to go see a kids movie if they weren't with their kid. There was a flaw because those two were way too far apart. And I'm going to look over here on the side because I have a quote brought up from Steven Spielberg in a Vanity Fair interview that he did. And it looks like it was back in 2008. And he says, quote, "I remember calling Jack Valenti, who was then the president of the Motion Picture Association, and suggested to him that we needed a rating between R and PG because so many films were falling into a netherworld, of unfairness. Unfair that certain kids were exposed to Jaws, one of his own movies, but also unfair that certain films were restricted, that kids who were 13, 14, 15 should be allowed to see. I suggested, let's call it PG-13 or PG-14, depending on how you want to design the slide rule. And Jack came back to me and said, we have determined that PG-13 would be the right age for that temperature of movie. So I've always been very proud that I had something to do with that rating." End quote. It's a fascinating story, but the point of me telling it is to prove the principle that I've been talking about. This system is too broad. It's too biased and too broad. A filmmaker could come in and talk to the MPAA and make that big of a change because he saw a flaw in it. So one, it had a flaw, which I still think it has because there should be gaps between all of the ratings. PG-13 is way too light for some movies and R is way too heavy for some movies, but they have to classify with one of them. And you could say that between every rating category there is. And not only is it flawed in that way, but it's a bias system. There should never be a filmmaker who can come in and say, my movie should be this, and then they make a change so that that happens. Even Steven Spielberg, who is one of the best, if not the best, filmmakers ever. And that is where I saw the importance of having this system. It's to help parents and individuals be confident that they will be comfortable in the movie theater, to help them know what exactly is happening in it, and not have any spoilers, but know what's going to happen so they don't have to sit through a scene with their eyes closed or sit in the theater just uncomfortable, and even an instance where people walk out. You want to know beforehand what you're paying for. You want to know beforehand what it is that you are getting into. And my system allows that in a much more defined way and in a much more specified way. It's not as broad, which allows it to be... It'll be a long time. I haven't done a lot of movies yet. I'm still at the very beginning stages of this. But it'll be a long time before two movies have the same rating, because no two movies made the same. And no two movies should have the same rating, except in very rare circumstances. And honestly, coincidence. So that's what my system is. That's why I've created it. And now I want to briefly, and I know this is going on long, and I apologize. And I've also noticed that my eye contact isn't great because I'm doing this on a Mac computer. I don't have any professional gear or anything. So I'm looking at myself in the recording, but I think I should be looking at my forehead. Like right now, you probably noticed that it's a little bit better. So I apologize for those. But I'm going to end this video with just the goals and where I see this going. So I'm going to do short, medium, and long-term goals to help everyone understand where I'm coming from. And to start my goals, I want to let you know, as I was coming into this video, I had written scripts down, I had thought about what I was going to say, I had done a lot of reflecting on what I would say. A lot of my shower time has been spent thinking about it. And I was going to script something out, and so I could just read it and then memorize it and deliver it so that it was less jumbled than what this has been so far. But I changed my mind. I want this to be authentic. I want this video and all the videos I make, whether on YouTube or wherever they end up being, which will start with YouTube, I want these videos to be authentic and real. I want people to not be seeing a fake me or seeing something that I've scripted and written down beforehand, especially for videos like this where I'm just explaining myself. My goal is to build trust with the people watching, and so that they can see the beautiful system that this is. I have a lot of confidence in this system and a lot of faith that it can be something universal throughout at least the States. I see this as something that can be influential in family life and individuals, especially those who love movies. Some might watch this and think it's ridiculous because you don't like movies and you don't think they're that big of a deal. But for people like me who have gotten through a lot of hard times because of movies and because of being able to escape or being able to feel the adrenaline rush of a scary movie or just being entertained and having 2 hours where you can just enjoy yourself and see the beautiful art that the filmmakers and actors have created. And movies have just meant a lot to me. Even in my married life now, me and my wife spend a lot of quality time together watching movies because it's something we can bond over and something we both enjoy. So whether you're a passionate movie watcher who finds a lot of solace in the movies, or if you're just someone who likes to see the big blockbusters and enjoy it, or even someone who sees movies every once in a while, this system can be beneficial to you because it helps you know what you're getting into and it helps you be comfortable with what you're watching. And the way I've explained it to my wife, who's been supportive as I've spent some time doing this ridiculous endeavor, is I want to build trust with an audience because this whole system is based on trust. I need to be able to trust myself or whoever I have doing these ratings that it'll be done right, and you need to be able to trust me and whoever's doing these ratings for the same reason. My wife, and a lot of people in this culture, so I'm from, for those who aren't in Provo, Utah, that's where I'm from. That's where I've lived, and that's where I am. And I've grown up in the LDS community and as an LDS member for my whole life. And my wife from California, but she also grew up in the LDS community. And it's something very common you see in this community and in our religion, but I'm sure it has a lot of similarities between everyone, is that my wife will not watch rated R movies, which I'm very proud of her for that. I'm very proud of anyone who has those kind of standards and sticks to them. That's impressive, and it's something that I think is commendable. It always, deep down, it bugs me because I see the flaws in the system, and when I hear people overarching say you should never see a rated R movie, it bugs me because there's a lot of really good movies that I don't think are that bad. And again, that's my opinion, and a lot of people have different opinions, but that my rating system will prove there are movies in the rated R category that are much closer to what we consider PG-13, are much closer to things that don't offend your standards. Then there's way more of those movies than we realize. There are rated R movies that will be very offensive to a lot of people. Rated R movies that will stay in what I have as the red category. My system ends up being color coordinated through those numbers. So it has the weighted number system, and then within the numbers it has green, yellow, orange, red. So a lot of people will see rated R movies as red. They're very different, which I'll explain in later movies, but I want to prove and show people that there are movies that they can see even if they have the R rating, because the content may not be as offensive to them, because the content doesn't fit what they imagine or consider a rated R movie, I'll say it in quotes, a rated R movie to be. So I'll know that I've succeeded with this when I've built the trust and that people like my wife can see a movie that my system has shown not to be as offensive as people expected, not to be as offensive as the rated R category gets stereotyped as. When people like my wife, or people who have for a long time seen a rated R movie as unwatchable, when those individuals and those families can watch a movie, enjoy it, and realize that it wasn't offensive, that they could be comfortable, that's when I know that I've succeeded. And that's why I say this whole thing is built on authenticity and trust, because I want you to be able to trust me and my system, or whoever I have with me to do this system that I've created. I want you to be able to trust it enough to watch movies without even worrying about the category, but only worrying about the content that you care about. Which again is why it's a fluid system and why I've allowed for there to be adjustments made for each individual, because what's offensive to you isn't offensive to me, and what's offensive to me may not be offensive to you. And I think those differences are key in really, truly rating movies. So in the short term, my goal with this is to build trust. To build your trust in me and in this system so that you can watch movies comfortably and enjoy a much greater variety of movies that you have beforehand just set aside because it was rated R. Medium term, I would like to put out a lot of movie ratings and reviews. The reviews is more of a passion project. I just like movies and I'm going to review them. So if that bugs you, don't watch them. But if you enjoy seeing someone like me reviewing movies and you want to watch that before you go see a movie to see if it's even worth seeing, then you'll enjoy them. But in the medium term, I want to put out a lot of videos, and I want to get my website to a point where you can expect to see a majority of movies that are popular. Eventually, long term, I want it to be all movies, which take a long time. But in the medium term, I want you to see the movies. I want the movies that you want to see to be rated, which I need your help with. So I'm getting my website up, and I'll put links to it. And so you can go on there and look at some of the ratings I've already done, some of the reviews I've already done, as well as navigate and get a feel for it. And one of the things you'll be able to do is contact me and make suggestions. I've only been doing movies I've been watching, obviously, because I want to watch them before I rate them and before I review them. But I don't see every movie. I have access to a wide variety, and I'm willing to pay a little bit to see movies that you guys want to be rated. If there's a movie that you've been dying to see or that you've heard isn't so bad, but it's rated R and you won't see it unless you know that you can trust it, let me know. Put it in the website. There's a place where you can insert and recommend movies for me to review and to rate. So go on there and put them in there. If there's movies that you've seen before and you can't remember and you want it to be rated, put it in there. If you just want to send me on a wild goose chase and pick a random movie for me to see, put it in there. And honestly, I'll be grateful because I love watching movies, especially ones I haven't seen before. So yeah, I need your help with that. I'm going to keep putting up as many as I can, and I'll make you guys a promise that if you suggest a movie to me to do, I will have it up on the website within a week or two of when you suggest it. I will make that my mission to do that, because I hope to grow this to be something, like I said, that spans the whole country and maybe even the world eventually. So I need your help getting content, but I also need your help sharing this. I need your help expanding this to be something that can go across the country. And so I'll ask that you spread the word, that you share the videos I put up that you're interested in, that you like me on and subscribe on YouTube, that you share the videos from YouTube and comment when you can, like the videos. That being said, my whole basis for this is going to be built on authenticity. I have confidence and I believe in this system. But I do not want people to like it or to share or to subscribe because they like me. I want people to do it because they believe in this as well and that they see the merits of it. I want everyone to subscribe, so if you're only doing it because you like me, that's great, that's fine. But the point is, I want this to be something that can help people. I want suggestions on how to improve it. I want to be working with everybody who sees the vision for what I'm doing and agrees with it and wants to help me expand it and help me do something about this issue that I've found in this flawed, this really useful tool that we've had so far that has flaws in it. I want to improve the system. I want to improve the movie watching experience for everyone. And that's my goal. That's what I'm hoping to do with this video. That's what I'm hoping to do with all these videos, is to, one, have fun, to do reviews because I love it, and hopefully that you guys love it too. And to, part two of that is to have this effective rating system that can actually make a difference. And I have a lot of passion in this. I love it. I love movies. I love seeing movies. I love talking about movies and diving into movies and seeing what makes movies great, seeing what makes directors great. And I want you guys to share this experience with me. I want this to be something that that we do together, something that I can have you guys on my team as we move forward with this. And I want to keep you guys updated on it, as well as I want you guys to keep me, like I said, updated on movies that you want to see in the system and on ideas on how to improve it, and then just sharing it with your friends. If you think this is something that could be useful to them, share it, because that's my goal. My hope is to make movies accessible to as many people as possible, and I think the best way to do that is showing people what the rating should be based on content, not based on bias. There'll be a little bit of bias, obviously, especially while it's just me, because I'm trying, but there'll be some bias. But I've made it my goal with this and my mission to eliminate as much bias as possible and to make as effective and useful of a system as possible. And so I just hope you guys help me with this and enjoy the journey with me. Here's the first video of hopefully many. Thanks, guys.